All right, now I believe I'm live, but I have yet to see anyone watching me. So I'm just going to talk into the camera randomly. Just watched the verdict of the Derek Chauvin trial. Needless to say, I am horrified at what I've seen, but I'm more horrified at what I'm seeing with respect to the reaction on the 5. I got the 5 on here. I'm watching the reaction of Fox News folks, and they all seem to be saying the same thing, which is that they are happy with this verdict. They believe that this was correct. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. This is ridiculous. The man followed protocol. He followed his training. The guy obviously died of a drug overdose. You had testimony of, I think, the medical examiner or somebody who said that, oh, actually, no, he didn't die of a drug overdose. But it's obvious that he did. I think that this is ridiculous. I think it's a horrible miscarriage of justice. And I'm outraged. I think that this is one of the most... It's a bizarre situation because I feel like this is the O.J. Simpson trial in reverse. Right? There was a miscarriage of justice there. But there was a black man, and he's a famous black man. And so people didn't want to convict him. And then in this case, you have a not at all famous white man, and he is convicted. And I feel like there are two systems of justice in America today. And I think that everybody on the 5 who's saying, oh, yeah, this is a good thing that he was convicted. Greg Gutfeld, who I respect greatly and I think is hilarious and amazing, just said something that made me lose so much respect for him. He just said that he believes that Chauvin is guilty. That's not the thing I have lost respect for him for. Okay, fine. People can think that. They're wrong, but people can think that. But Greg Gutfeld just said that even had he not believed that Derek Chauvin was guilty, he would have liked to see a guilty verdict just so that there would not be rioting in the streets. I mean, how disgusting is that? Somebody who pretends to sit there all day and say, oh, I want liberty and I want America to be free. And he says all this stuff every day on the 5, and I believe him and I think that he's genuine. And then he comes out with this BS. Like, what the hell are you talking about, Greg Gutfeld? You want injustice for a man to spend the rest of his life in prison so that your neighborhood doesn't get looted? Give me a freaking break. That's ridiculous. Okay, it's just like baffling to me that he would say such a thing. We cannot allow terrorists to control the country, right? And that's what these Black Lives Matter activists are. They're terrorists. They're domestic terrorists, and they're terrorizing the country. And they actually were effective in convincing somebody that it was better to convict an innocent man of murder than to, I mean, I'm going to make a video about that, actually. I'm going to make a whole video about that one thing that Greg Gutfeld said, because that was so unbelievable. To me, it's like, if Greg Gutfeld is convinced that it's better to put this man in prison for a crime he didn't commit to stop the, the riots going on in the country, then how many other people were convinced of that? If Greg Gutfeld, who is supposed to be this, he's like a leader of many men. He's on Fox News. There's many people that watch Greg Gutfeld, that believe what he says, that listen to him, and he's telling people that it's better to convict somebody. I mean, that to me is unbelievable. But it all okay. Then I have some more viewers here. To me, this is an utter miscarriage of justice. This to me is outrageous. Guilty on all counts for following protocol. None of the other cops seemed to think anything was wrong. The guy had taken, I think I don't remember exactly what it was. It was like 3 times or 5 times a lethal dose of fentanyl, plus a bunch of other drugs. This is a case where, and I've heard of this happening before. In fact, I knew a guy who did this. I knew a guy from Australia who did this. The cops approached this George Floyd, and George Floyd took a bunch of this fentanyl at once because he wanted to get rid of the evidence. He didn't want to be caught with it and to go to jail. So he just took this fentanyl. And it seems that maybe that's what killed him, plus the other drugs, right? That seems reasonable that killed him. He had an overdose and he died. I don't know how you could come to any other conclusion. Knee on a neck. I want to see how many knee on neck restraints around the world, which is used all over the world. How many of those incidents directly resulted in the death of somebody being held? Because my guess is that it's something around 0. That's my guess. Let's see here. We got some super chats. Jeff Thomas writes, legit legal question. As I'm a layman, how can a person both intentionally and unintentionally murder a person? That's a fantastic question. I don't think you have to be a lawyer to answer that. The answer, of course, is that you cannot unintentionally and intentionally murder a person. I'm not a lawyer. I should say that ahead of time, even though I speak with confidence about some of the legal stuff I talk about. That's because I do a bunch of research into it, especially like constitutional issues. I'll research those pretty heavily before talking about them. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a trained lawyer. I didn't go to law school. I didn't pass a bar. So I can't really speak about this stuff in the same way that a lawyer can. But I can just say how I perceive it. And, I can see how you guys perceive it. We can talk about it. Southern Comfort writes, the world is a better place without George Floyd. I mean, I think it's probably true, actually. It's sad, but true that there are some people that are monsters in our society, and our society is better off without them. Do I think that means that we need to have capital punishment for every crime? No, I don't think so. I think prison works very well as a deterrent in some cases, but maybe not well enough in others. Yet I don't think it's just to just kill people who we think are obviously have committed minor crimes. Of course, that's ridiculous. MJ Jackson writes, political statement: he was overcharged but not innocent. Safety over truth. Sheep. Safety over truth. Sheep. Yeah. Safety over truth. Exactly. Look, there are a lot of people who think that, the restraint was too egregious. The restraint was too egregious. And that's a perfectly legitimate position to have. I don't think so. And here's why I don't think so. Because if you watch the full video, George Floyd does everything he can to try to weasel his way out of an arrest. He's basically begging and crying from the moment the cops approach the car. And so there's a number of instances where it appears that George Floyd is crying wolf. I'm not sure he was crying wolf, though, because when he's saying, I can't breathe, and he's not being, the officers aren't even touching him. This is before they ever try to restrain him at all. It's probably true that he couldn't breathe, but that's because of the fentanyl. He was overdosing. But the cops didn't know that. They didn't recognize that. And so when they put him in a restraint and he was saying he can't breathe, it just sounded like a repetition of what he was saying before. And so I don't think the cops had any reason to believe that he was in any danger. I think the cops believed that he was just trying to get out of arrest. I mean, he did say a bunch of things like, I can't ride in the back, I'm claustrophobic. Can I ride in the front? Can you sit back in the back with me? I'm scared to go in the back seat. I mean, like weird stuff like that. And then when he finally gets in the back seat, he slides all the way across the cop car out of the cop car. And he says a bunch of other weird stuff. He's obviously just trying to evade arrest. And so I think the cops were expecting that just about everything he said at that point, because there was a pattern, right? A lot of the stuff he was saying was clearly to try to get out of the arrest. He was like panicking. And so it seemed like this is what he was saying when he was on the ground and he was being restrained, to me. Jack writes, do you think he should have been judged totally innocent or just with lesser crimes? No, totally innocent. Totally innocent. I mean, if they would have said like he was, he violated some kind of police protocol, that's okay. But to say he murdered somebody, I mean, come on. Let's see here. Okay. Keegan the Great says, the only thing this should tell you is that terrorism works. Now it's conservatives' turn to make the left cower. Burn, shoot, loot. I'm not going to encourage people to burn, shoot, or loot anything. But certainly we need to be a lot less nice to the left. We need to be a lot more aggressive with how we talk about the left and how we deal with the left. I think, what's that guy's name? James O'Keefe has the right idea, right? He's basically suing everybody for defamation. And also Mike Lindell is doing the same thing. And I think that we need to start doing this because this is what the left does, but the left lies about why they're suing us, whereas we have just cause, I think. Jack says, could you have Timothy Gordon on your show to discuss this? I could if I knew who that was. I'll try to find, I'll look him up. Timothy Gordon. Alex McKeegan. Oh, sorry, McMeekin. Alex McMeekin writes, title of next, I guess, video, BLM, literally a racist lynch mob. Hold on, I actually have to write down. They absolutely are literally a racist lynch mob. Oh, hold on, the wife has written me. Give me a second, guys. What did you write, woman? She sent an attachment. Yeah. She sent the attachment of the guilty verdict. Yeah, I'm aware. Okay, I'm going to do new video ideas. Greg Gutfeld gives into terrorism. Okay, for those of you who missed my rant earlier, oops, Gutfeld. My phone doesn't understand this name. For those of you who weren't here earlier, I was talking about my disappointment in the 5 celebrating the Derek Chauvin guilty verdict, and specifically Greg Gutfeld saying that he would have liked to see a guilty verdict even if he believed that that Derek Chauvin was not guilty, just so that there wouldn't be riots anymore, which I think is astonishing and absolutely disgusting. Like, he's just giving in to domestic terrorism. He's saying, let the terrorists win. Katya Golden, Katya, I believe, is a Russian name, and Golden is not a Russian name, so I'm guessing she married a non-Russian. Let's see here. She says, now we have to wait for an appeal. He's not guilty. Now, that's the other thing I was going to talk about. I do think there will be an appeal. It didn't occur to me that he could even possibly be found guilty because he was following protocol. So I do think there's a possibility he'll be let go on appeal. That's kind of the ideal situation in terms of stopping the riots, because although people might riot after an appeal, it's not going to be quite the same pressure cooker as this. But I have no interest in appeasing Black Lives Matter. I do not give a crap about these domestic terrorists. I say, like, let him go. Let Derek Chauvin go, because that's correct. That's right. He's not guilty of anything. And then when these people riot, send the National Guard in and just arrest them all. Right? People who riot and try to burn places down and try to loot places and try to shoot people, they need to be arrested and put in jail. Tried and hopefully convicted and then put in prison. Let's see here. Dr. Lex Winter says, I did go to law school and your view is bang on. Well, thank you, Dr. Lex Winter. And he's not only a lawyer, but a doctor as well. That's kind of impressive. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get to all your super chats, but these are going pretty quick here. Oh my gosh, there's so many. Sorry, I get going on a rant and I can't stop. Okay, the domestic engineer writes, on the way to work in East St. Paul, most of my customers are cool. Oh, wow. A head shop, gas station, so you deal with a ton of stuff. Pray I come home to my kids. I have a big mouth and I hate liars. Well, we love you here on Mr. Reagan, domestic engineer. I do hope that you get back to your kids and, be careful. My family's from Minnesota. When we came from Germany originally, my great-great-grandfather, that's where we settled, in Minnesota, and it's just disgusting. And in Minneapolis, actually. So it's horrifying to me to see, my ancestral lands being just decimated this way. Jacob Opitz gave $1 but didn't write anything. Try it again, Jacob Opitz. It's sometimes difficult to get your question or comment in on the super chats. It's not quite clear exactly how it's done, so if you've not done it before, it can be difficult. Torque1 says, this means all good cops will resign and only hired thugs will be left. I agree. I mean, this is terrible for what's going to happen in our country in terms of who wants to be a police officer. Police officers are just demonized. Who wants to be a police officer now? They're not even considered it's not considered a heroic profession anymore. Percy Glenn writes, if we can't trust any of the 3 branches of government, what do we have left? Percy, why do you got to say that? I'm already depressed about, what happened in the election, which was, according to YouTube, totally fair and nothing bad happened, and Joe Biden won without any kind of corruption, nothing bad at all. It was perfectly fair, and Everybody on YouTube totally agrees with this position, and nobody would ever contradict the mighty YouTube overlords. All right, let's see here. Adidaba X writes, Michigan, probably Minnesota, citizens coming to realize, Michigan citizens coming to realize Michigan, Minnesota, etc., the right and aspects of it are controlled operation. Our conservative media and candidates all accept leftist views. Yeah, I'm so disappointed in Fox right now for acquiescing to this verdict and saying, oh yeah, this is a good thing. It's not a good thing. This is terrible. This is a terrible miscarriage of justice. This guy did not murder anyone. Shane Keena, can we learn something from the left instead of always taking the high road? Look, I said this in a recent video. I've been doing a lot of I do a live stream every single day on another channel called Toxic Masculinity now. You can go ahead and subscribe to that if you're interested. Although there are a lot of notifications for that because I also segment out every news bit that I do, and I go ahead and post that, so there's a lot of notifications. So go ahead and subscribe if you want, but don't hit the notification bell because you're going to get like inundated. Well, what I say on that show a lot these days is there are three problems that Republicans have. One, we have morals, and we have principles. Like our whole platform is based on principles, right? That's our first problem. And the reason that that's a problem is because the left has no principles. They have no moral guidance other than, what's going to look bad for me politically. And so when you're cheating, it's much easier to win. And we don't do that. We take the high road. We try to be moral. We try to be ethical. We try to follow a set of principles. And so that puts us at a great disadvantage. The next disadvantage that we have is honesty, right? I think Republicans, the whole point of being a Republican is to approach the world in an honest way. And that's difficult because if you're constantly honest with people, truth isn't always pretty. Truth is often very ugly. People don't want to hear it. And so when you're telling people a lot of things they don't want to hear a lot of the time, you're not going to necessarily be popular. But those two things, honesty and principles, are things that we cannot compromise, right? We have to maintain the integrity of those. The third thing, though, we can change, which is we're very nice. We're very kind to Democrats. When somebody like Maxine Waters was out and she was encouraging the riots in 1992, with regard to the Los Angeles riots from the whole Rodney King thing. She was encouraging those riots. She's been encouraging rioting, I think specifically from Black Americans, since the 90s. She's been out there. That's her sort of MO. That's what she does. That's the standard. That's the status quo for Maxine Waters. So this idea that and then we just let that go for a long time. I think we've always just thought of her as a bit of a kook, right? And we thought, well, we'll just let that slide. We should never have let that slide. We should never let Nancy Pelosi is a criminal. Joe Biden is a criminal. Why don't we file lawsuits against these people? We should use the system against them. They use the system against us. And we're not even doing anything wrong, right? Look at what's happening with Matt Gaetz. They're throwing the book at him, and I don't even think he committed any crimes. I don't think he did anything even immoral. Maybe he's done some immoral things in his life. We all have. But I don't think he's guilty of what they're accusing him of. And we can't even accuse them of things they're actually doing wrong. We can't actually go ahead and take action against them, legal action against them, because what? Because we don't want to look like the bullies in politics? Well, we're not the bullies, okay? We're just but we got to be a lot tougher. We got to stop being so nice to Democrats. A gentleman by the name of Knuckles, thanks for $20. Thanks, Knuckles. Writes, Chauvin was just sacrificed to the altar to stop cities from burning. That's all that happened here. This was not justice. It was appeasement to the BLM mob. Cops are going to walk out now and leave the cities to burn. That was beautifully summarized. BLM is a domestic terrorist organization, and they have actually convinced people to undermine the judicial system in America and put an innocent man, to prison because people are afraid of cities burning. They're afraid of places being looted. Kudjo24 says, you are naive, Mr. Reagan. I mean that in the nicest way possible. Law has been dead in this country since January. Well, I'm not sure I disagree with that. But I am an optimist. I don't think I'm naive, but I am certainly an optimist. Hold on. This thing doesn't always work quite right. So let's see here. Rona Church says, "Hello, Mr. Reagan." Hello, Rona. Cujo24 also says, "You're living in a Marxist hell, and the system of laws you expect to rely on do not work." To some degree, I agree with that, yeah. Okay. The domestic engineer writes, "We love our home and community and will be damned if we give it up without a fight. Don't be stupid, but stand tall and brave. We got this, y'all." You know what? I agree. I mean, I'm from Oregon, and I agree. Like, I was just talking about this the other day. Somebody, I think it was that black rapper guy that lives in England. I forget his name. He's a cool guy. Anyway, he was saying, like, I don't understand why anybody would live in Portland, and I'm actually from there. I'm from Salem, which is fairly close. And I have lived in Portland for many years. I lived in Portland, and I got to say, it's one of the most beautiful, most astonishingly beautiful cities in America. I mean, it's essentially a city in a forest. I mean, it's a phenomenal place, and it's very, very difficult to live in a place, to like be born and raised in a place and just turn your back on it, especially a place that is that beautiful and that amazing. And it's just a tragedy what's happening in Portland. And I think that the people there believe that they will be supported at some point. Like somebody will come in and rescue the city. I'm not so sure that's true, but I would love to believe it. Man Up JC wrote, "You just woke up, Mr. Reagan. Chauvin was found guilty because people were scared of more riots." Well, why do people think that I'm so naive just because I'm an optimist? It's like a little bit insulting, guys. Let's see here. Per Kyla writes, "So temper tantrums, riots, control the outcome of everything in our country now. Very sad." I mean, my brother made a point many years ago when he was stuck at an airport and he couldn't get on a flight. And he said, "I just started like basically berating the employees there." He said, "I felt kind of bad about it because it wasn't their fault. But eventually they put me on a flight. Eventually they figured something out for me." And he said, the old axiom, I don't know, whatever. The old saying, "the squeaky wheel gets the grease," is right. He says the people who are the loudest and complain the most tend to get attention. And that's what's going on here times 1,000. You know, people who are, but this goes way beyond that. You know, this is essentially terrorism. We will burn down your cities unless you do what we want. And people have gone, okay, we'll do what you want, which I think is just detestable. You can never give in to terrorists because then they will just continue to terrorize you for other things that they want. Angela B writes, "No justice for Ashley Babbitt. I no longer believe in equal justice." It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And a lot of people have figured out because of the bracelets on the guy's wrist who the cop was that shot her. And it was a black cop shooting a white Trump supporter. And they won't even release his name. They won't even talk about it. They've like, we've done an investigation. I've just investigated myself and I found myself innocent. Okay, we believe you, Capitol Police. No, we don't. We definitely do not. All right, JPP says, "Tune into Sky Australia on YouTube, the only media outlet telling the truth." You know, I always say this about Sky News. I say Sky News is the best American news channel. And it doesn't make any sense. Sky News Australia. Sky News Britain, totally different. Sky News Australia is the best American news channel we have, and it's from Australia. It's really disturbing. Okay, so sorry, we got another super chat here. Alejandro Fonseca. I hope I'm saying that right. Alejandro writes, "Now I understand the pressure from that Pontius Pilate felt when he gave into public pressure from the roaring crowd and convicted Jesus Christ to death." You know, that's actually such a good point. I had a really fantastic minister once talking about this particular issue. And he said, look, you know, Pontius Pilate was, I think he was a Roman, right? He was like the Roman governor of that region. And he didn't seem to want to put Christ to death. He seemed to give the crowd every opportunity to not kill Christ. Like he asked many times, like, are you sure you want to do this? And he gave them an option, which was, he seemed to think, or speculatively he seemed to think, was an obvious choice for them. Like, let this man go, who's obviously like a good man, or let this murderer go. And they were like, let the murderer go. So yeah, mobs definitely can have a lot of influence when they threaten a city or a civilization. And yeah, we've been giving into domestic terrorists as a civilization since the time of Christ. Pretty unbelievable. Thank you for that analogy. That's actually a very nice analogy. Let's see here. Man up. Oh, golly. Okay, just jumped down. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. iBob says, this conviction won't matter. Cities will burn anyway. The only thing that would change is the damages and who's targeted for systemic racism. The court just granted one extra person. The court just guaranteed one extra person will suffer. iBob, you are spot on. I mean, if you give in to terrorism, you know what they do? They get this idea, oh, terrorism works. Let's commit more acts of terrorism. That's what they do. If you want to stop terrorism, you know what you do? Don't give in to terrorists. It's sort of like the border thing, right? You let in people at the border, illegal aliens into the country, and you know what that does? That encourages more illegal immigration. Aston, shut up. Yeah, I know. I'm upset about the Derek Chauvin thing too. What are you crying for? No, I'm not letting you out. Go away. All right. Let's see here. Daniel J. Corica. Hey, Daniel. Good to see you, man. He says, give a mouse a cookie and it will want a glass of milk. Exactly right. Yeah. They will only want more. Kimberly Ashcroft writes, reasonable doubt was overwhelming. Jury coward. There will still be riots. I'm sick of the ignorance and violence ruling our country. Love you, Mr. Reagan. We love you too, Kimberly, on this show. I mean, honestly, like, I do feel like I have the best subscribers on YouTube. I'm sorry to say that YouTube has constricted my channel incredibly to the point where my videos are now only shown to subscribers. They won't even show them to anybody who's not subscribed to my channel, which is quite a shame. I'm trying to work out how to fix that, but if I can't, I may switch to a Mr. Reagan 2 channel. We'll see. James Plus writes, hey, James, good to see you. For once, America doesn't abort something. Instead, we got a miscarriage. That's a bit of a dark joke, James. Let's see here. Okay. All right, Jacob Opitz. Oh, my gosh. This thing keeps skipping around. Jacob Opitz writes, you missed mine. Also, the jury sequestered, ? Sorry, man. Well, I didn't miss yours. There was nothing written on it. Or maybe you wrote it again. I did miss it. Sorry. I'm trying to... Sometimes it skips and I like lose some of the super chats. Also, the jury was sequestered. The jury was not sequestered, I don't think, until like yesterday or something like that. Let's see. Cassandra Benefield says, I was in law enforcement. I walked out in March. Things are out of control. Cassandra, you are, I think, one of thousands of law enforcement that are walking out or will walk out shortly. Manu PJC writes, what do you think is next? What is the domino effect after this? Yeah, I mean, this is going to reverberate for sure. I mean, like Miss Benefield just said, we're going to have a major problem with, keeping good police officers in jobs throughout the country now. And again, these domestic terrorists are just going to realize that their efforts work, and they're going to do it more. We're going to have more riots. We're going to have more peaceful protests throughout the country. More people are going to die. More stores are going to burn. More places are going to get looted. I mean, thanks, Biden. All right, Jack says, it's a belief traditionally held by some that Pilate did convert later on, to Christianity. Hopefully it's the same with the courts. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, this is a pretty severe miscarriage of justice. Mark in Alberta wrote, now BLM will claim that the previous riots were justified. Well, yeah, of course they will. Of course they will. All right, sorry, I'm losing some super chats here, so I'm going to go up. Okay. All right, Torque1 writes, good for you, Cassandra. True American in a pile of hot brass from my cold, dead hands. A lot of people are saying on the chat here that their guns are being lost in a boating accident, which is a suggestion that they think the government's going to take their guns, and so when they do come and ask them how many guns they have, they'll say, well, I did have a lot of guns, but I lost them in a boating accident, suggesting that they can't possibly give their guns back to the government if they don't have them, which I have often found very amusing. Aston, what are you doing, man? My cat is so... Don't get a Bengal. If you want peace and quiet, don't get a Bengal. Unless you have a huge house and you can like put them on the other side of the house. Let's see here. Emperor Gubatine writes, just wait for the riots after Chauvin's appeal case. Well, that's the thing. I don't think they're going to be as bad as they would have been had he been found not guilty now. But I don't think we need to give in to terrorists. Like, just arrest them. Okay? If they're rioting, go in and arrest them. Send a massive amount of National Guard troops there. I guess he's more upset than I am about Chauvin. All right, let's see here. Juice Loosener writes... I guess that's supposed to be a joke, but I don't understand it. The judge was on camera saying Mad Maxine gave Chauvin a way to appeal her hate speech with her hate speech. Yeah. I mean, I think he would have been able to appeal in any case, but I think that gave him an opportunity for a mistrial. Like he could declare a mistrial could be declared based on what happened there. I think he would have appealed in any case. I think he's obviously innocent. Let's see here. Philip Frackenwitz writes, Frackowitz? He writes, why was Maxine Waters allowed out of her district? Yeah, so, well, I don't even know how she could possibly have ever been elected, but she is. Let's see here. AJ1218 writes, just got my Army retirement papers yesterday. My watch is done. I'm glad that I won't be called in for the riots this time. Not a good day for the U.S. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's rough. I want I want riots to happen, and I want all the National Guard to go in, and as the riots are happening, just arrest everybody. Put them all in jail. Let's see here. Jeff Thomas writes, Ron Paul disguises the Federal Reserve as a Nike store in the hopes that rioters will burn it down. That's from the Babylon Bee, I guess. Thanks, Jeff, for that. That's actually pretty brilliant. And Nyan, I can never pronounce that right. That's like the name of, I don't remember what country that's from. Philippines or something like that? But like everybody has the same last name. It's kind of funny. Mr. Reagan, honestly, the idea that terrorism worked kind of became more apparent when they refused to look into the election. No, you're 100% right. There's a lot of things that America has been doing because of rioting and because of this kind of because of the protest. The protests. I don't consider them protests. What's really funny is that they'll crack down on conservatives for January 6th, but if Biden voters are protesting, burning down buildings, stealing things, they'll acquiesce to whatever it is that the mob wants. It's disgusting. James Pless writes, how does Mr. Reagan afford such a nice apartment and a beautiful wife? He is controlled Oppo. Hey, fake news. Aston has lobbied for control of the channel. All is lost. Oh, I'll tell you what's kind of messed up is I had a bunch of money invested in... what is it? Dogecoin. And we made a bunch of money over the last few days. Really, really great. But Dogecoin kind of crashed today. I wonder if it's still down. Dogecoin kind of crashed today, and so we lost not all of our gains, but we did lose quite a few. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm way down. That's terrible. It basically like completely crashed. So I'm like out a bunch of money. But hopefully it'll come back up. I don't know what happened. Today was supposed to be like everybody's supposed to invest in Dogecoin today, and it just kind of collapsed. But I'm not very good at that kind of stuff, so don't take my word on that. But Valeria is investing a lot of stuff in various kind of crypto, and she's doing a really good job with that. So, we made a bit of money, but again, we lost a lot with the crash in Doge there. So hopefully it'll go back up. If you invested in Doge, do not sell out. Wait, because I think it's going to come back up. At least that's my advice. I'm not an expert at that. Does it matter? Writes, impeach Maxine Waters. Yeah, I don't know how we're going to get rid of her. I assume she'll die eventually. She's pretty old. Let's see. Valley Music Store. It's George Floyd's irresponsible active drug addiction that caused this whole mess. It has nothing to do with race. Addiction doesn't discriminate. Yeah, it's so obvious, right? It's so obvious that the Derek Chauvin thing, even if he did somehow, he is somehow culpable, which I don't think he is. They still haven't shown in any way that he's a racist. That's just kind of like an assumption. I often forget sometimes that this is about racism because it's like there's no evidence for that at all. But Honest Annie says, I love your voice, Mr. Reagan. Oscar meows too. Oscar's meows too. Aston is the name of the cat. Well, I'm glad somebody likes the cat meows because it drives me nuts. Let's see here. There's another chat. Nope, no more chats. Right. So if you guys weren't watching earlier, I'm sure some people have written and I missed them. If you guys missed it earlier, I basically think that this is a miscarriage of justice, and I think that Fox News has disgraced themselves, I think, to some degree, by agreeing with the jury. I think everybody I saw on Fox News, as I watched the reaction to the Chauvin verdict, everyone I watched basically said, yeah, we agree with this. We think that justice has prevailed. How did justice prevail? A police officer who followed protocol and was restraining a suspect who was trying to evade arrest has found guilty of the man's murder, despite the fact that the man clearly overdosed on drugs because of the manner in which he restrained the guy, despite the fact that that is how he was trained to restrain suspects. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's bizarre. There's an argument to be made that he had restrained him for too long. But again, if you watch the full video, from the moment the body cam comes on to the end of the video when they take him away on a stretcher, if you watch the whole thing, George Floyd is resisting arrest from the moment that Derek Chauvin approaches his car. He's crying, he's complaining, he's screaming, and it seems like he's crying wolf. It's obvious he's on some kind of drugs, and he's maybe panicking a little bit, but he's trying to evade arrest. He's trying to get out of it. So if you're trying to evade arrest for however many minutes it is before you're actually restrained, and then when you're restrained after trying to escape, you're trying to slip through the car, if you remember the video, after being restrained, if you're continuing to say the same things you said before you were restrained, right? Before he was restrained, he was saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. So when he was being restrained, he said, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. But it seemed like he had been crying wolf before, so nobody believed him when he was being restrained. Now, because of what fentanyl does, which we've all learned from watching the news, it's clear that, maybe he couldn't breathe, but that's not something that the officer could possibly have known. I mean, the problem is police officers are not medical professionals. They can't diagnose somebody as overdosing on drugs necessarily. I mean, sometimes I think it's obvious. Let's see here. EFO says, we are keeping the peace and blessings to everyone, Lord, praying for our officers. Who you calling for? I don't understand the last sentence, but I appreciate the sentiment. Certainly we want peace and we don't want riots. Although to some degree, I kind of would have preferred people to riot if the National Guard had been instructed to arrest them all, anyone who's rioting at all. Because in that case, we could have taken off a lot of violent people off the streets, at least temporarily. Anthony Poole writes, Fox News lost their credibility last November. By the way, I saw your cameo on For All Mankind. Yeah. I'm on this Apple TV show called For All Mankind. I had a little bit of had a line. Yeah, it was a good show. Worst dressing room I've ever... It's funny. I've been in people's dressing rooms before because I've worked on TV shows and hung out with actors and stuff, but I'd never had my own dressing room before For All Mankind. It was my first dressing room for myself, and it was awful. It was like this broken down old thing. I'm like, I wouldn't go camping in this because they're like basically like campers, segmented, and it was not nice. And it was in the Sony lot, which you'd expect it to be quite nice, but no, that's only for the stars. They only get the nice dressing rooms. But I agree with what you're saying about November. Yeah, I mean that was a hugely disappointing thing. I've been watching a lot of Newsmax, and I've been watching a lot of Sky News in Australia, and I keep telling everybody that Sky News Australia is the best American news network that we have. My buddy Gorka is on Newsmax on Sundays at 7. If you want to catch his Sunday show, it's my new favorite Sunday show. That's great. A lot of people are like, oh, Gorka's a rhino. Gorka's horrible. No, he's not. I know Gorka personally. He's like a straight up 100% Trump supporting, true patriot, despite the fact that he's not from America. He's one of the most patriotic, most conservative guys I know. People don't like Gorka. I don't know what your problem is. I don't even know where that comes from. Aussie Girl in the USA writes, Mr. Reagan, stop watching Fox. They're part of the fake news setup. Pretend conservatives wake up. That's a little bit harsh, Aussie Girl. I would say that there are some people on Fox that I like. I obviously like Tucker Carlson. I think everybody knows Tucker Carlson is like a legit dude. I'm sure some people don't think so, but I think he's totally legit. That's the only show I watch with any consistency. I occasionally watch The Five. They're a bit of fun. But yeah, they lost a lot of credibility with me today. I mean, they lost a lot of credibility on over the election, but today was, I think, even worse. Let's see here. Who's this? HWH. I agree with you, Mr. Reagan. There is injustice. One day tables will turn, and we'll see if they'll think differently. Here's the only problem with this. Republicans will never aim to convict leftists of crimes just because we don't like the color of their skin. We're never going to convict black people just because they're black. We're never going to try to convict Democrats just because they're Democrats. We're never going to use these leftist tactics against them. So there will never be a sort of balance of the injustice of the Democrats being tempered by the injustice of the Republicans. That's never going to happen. Republicans will always maintain some degree of integrity. We're going to maintain our principles and our morals. So we're never going to come back with them. Democrats come at us with injustice, and we come back at them with justice, which is good. In the long run, I think it's incredibly important. It's necessary. It's what we have to do. But it's painful because we have the sting of being attacked, and we don't attack back in the same way, right? We're not as vicious as they are, and we never will be. But we do have to start being less kind to them and give in less when they attack us. We need to fight back 1,000 times more than what we're doing now. Marie Warner says they're going to riot and call it a celebration. They need new sneakers and TVs. I think you're 100% right. I mean, we'll see what happens tonight. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be peaceful. But a lot of people are predicting riots. My buddy Elijah Schaefer, he does a show called Slightly Offensive on Blaze. I'm sure he's there. I'll write him actually right now to find out. I'm sure he's there in Minnesota. Where is he? He doesn't always respond to my texts because he's flaky like this from LA. Are you in MN? Question mark. We'll see if he's in there. We're going to Vegas soon, so we're going to go hang out. It'll be fun. Elijah's a good guy, but I think he's probably there. Anyway, he's guessing that there's going to be riots, even though Derek Chauvin was found guilty. So we'll see if his prediction is right. We'll see if your prediction is right. I think you guys are probably right. Coco Large. He clearly could breathe, or else he wouldn't be able to talk. The I can't breathe feeling comes from the high heart rate. Source, I OED'd before. Oh, wow. Okay, so this person, Coco Large, says that she's OED'd, or he. It's a sphinx. I can't tell if it's a he or a she. And they've said they've OD'd, and they felt like they couldn't breathe. And so that's fairly common. And I've read that in different articles, and I've seen that on different shows, them talking about the symptoms of ODing, especially from fentanyl. You do feel like you can't breathe. Flapstick gave $5, but they've retracted their message for some reason. Well, write me again, Flapstick. I'll read your comment. Southern Comfort writes, the verdict is because of lamestream media doxing. Yeah, it's terrorism. It's terrorism. There you go, Aston. Go eat that pen. Yeah. I mean, people giving into terrorism. It's ridiculous. Honest Annie writes, why did Floyd's family get $27 million? Isn't conviction supposed to be the ultimate goal? Yeah, no joke. They got a bunch of money from the city. I think they probably got money from crowdsourcing as well. I don't know for sure if that's true, but I'm sure they must have. Grape Ape, right? Aston the cat. Yep, true. That's my cat. There we go. Flapstick wrote again. They wrote, another strange event marked on April 20th. Yeah, that's true. And we also had a dive in Dogecoin, which you guys probably don't care about. Well, most of you probably don't care about, but I care about because I had money invested in Dogecoin and I lost a bunch of money. So yeah, I'm actually down from my initial investment about $350. Oh, it's just so sad. But yeah, I don't know. Christopher Wilkins writes, that was hilarious. I think highly of you, Elijah, and his producer Savannah. Oh yeah, Christopher Wilkins. You know who his producer? That's funny. I don't always watch his shows. I don't know how featured Savannah is, but Savannah's also a good friend of mine. Great girl. Let's see here. Omnar Goldmane, RGLH, writes, either you believe in science, vaccines / innocence, or you don't. Guilty anti-vax. Total contradiction. Yeah, true. Although it should be said about the vaccine that it is an experimental new technology, the vaccine, the RMNA, is it? Yeah, it's something that I think people are skeptical of, not because they're necessarily anti-vax, but it's a new kind of vaccine using a new technology, which I think people are a little bit concerned about because it's something that, we've had vaccines for over 100 years, but we haven't had this particular kind of vaccine. So I think the vaccine works. I think it's safe, but I'm not taking it. I haven't taken it, and I don't think I will take it. And we have reasons for that. Valeria and I have reasons for that. But I do think it's safe, and I do think that people should take it, but we're not going to. So, I mean, take that for what it is, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about the vaccine because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I have friends who are, and they've told me that the vaccine is safe and effective. But they also think masks are like a magic bullet. So I don't know how much I believe them on everything. Let's see. EFO has written. They didn't write anything. They just gave me $5. Well, thank you, EFO. There's nothing there. I can't read anything there. Let's see here. OUM and UHO. I don't know what that means, but that's your name. They just put $5 for Aston. Aston, you're making me money. I don't really do these live streams for super chats, but for the money. So if you're going to super chat and you don't want to spend very much money, I mean, just spend like a couple bucks or however much it takes to get the super chat. The reason super chats are actually valuable to me is that they separate people who really want to say something from people just chit chatting amongst themselves and stuff like that, which is nice because there is so many of you and there's so many comments. I can't read everything. So it's kind of a nice system, even though it charges people, which I don't necessarily like. I wouldn't have minded a system in which you can just, I don't know. I don't know how you would do it otherwise, but I don't know. It is what it is, and I get a little bit of money from it, so it's kind of nice. I think you guys have almost made me back what I've lost in Dogecoin, so thanks for that. EFO said, should Bigfoot get the vaccine? Bigfoots get the vaccine, ? I don't quite understand that. I'm not going to lie. I mean, obviously it's a joke. I don't understand the joke. People are writing no vax. Somebody wrote, watch OAN and Newsmax, F Fox. Well, I would say that, yes, watch OAN, watch Newsmax. Those are great. And also Sky News Australia. Fantastic. That's my favorite one, Sky News Australia. Even though I love Newsmax and I do watch Newsmax, I don't know why. There's something about Fox News Australia or not Fox News, Sky News Australia that I like. I just love those guys. Let's see here. Coco Large says, it's a sphinx of my president. Oh, is it Trump in there? Trump's face? That's hilarious. I can't see because it's tiny. That's pretty funny, though. Janet Partridge from New Zealand writes, the jury were cowards, yet will be held up as heroes, stopping the city from a new and bad justice is now in the U.S. All right, hold on. Okay. And Sammy Sparks gave me $5, but they didn't write anything. So I'm guessing you kind of you messed up how you type stuff in, which is easy to do. Let's see. So let me go ahead and reiterate my position on this for anybody who's new in the live stream. I believe that there was a a disgusting, disgraceful miscarriage of justice today. I think that Derek Chauvin is innocent on all charges. I think that's obvious because he was trained to restrain somebody in that fashion. I believe that George Floyd appeared to be crying wolf from the moment that he was approached by the police. They tried for quite a while to get him into the police car in a way that wasn't even physical. They didn't touch him. And then he literally tried to escape, right? He jumped through the police car to the other side to try to escape police. He had been begging the police, crying, saying things that were obviously not true. One thing that he said that was probably true, but police didn't believe him because they weren't even touching him, was he was saying, "I can't breathe," from the very moment they basically approached the car. Not quite that early, but long before they ever touched him, he was saying, "I can't breathe." So when he was saying, "I can't breathe," and the guy was restraining him, Derek Chauvin was restraining him, I suspect that the cops probably believed that he was crying wolf, right? That he was lying again. The thing is, he might not have been lying the entire time because he was overdosing on fentanyl at the time, which people have said, which you've seen, through the coverage recently, that is what happens when you overdose on fentanyl. You feel like you can't breathe. So probably he was telling the truth, that he felt like he couldn't breathe. But they had no reason to believe that. These men, these police officers, they're not doctors. It's difficult for them to diagnose people on the scene, right? You'd need medical professionals there to do that. They didn't have that. And there's this assumption that, Derek Chauvin should have known everything. He should have been totally aware of exactly what was going on physiologically with George Floyd and should have acted appropriately. You know what? Hindsight is 20/20. All of us can say what Derek Chauvin should have done, but until you're in that position, you can't possibly know what Derek Chauvin knew or believed or perceived what was happening. I mean, all the other cops that were there were sort of cavalierly walking around. Well, not even cavalierly walking around. They were focused on the crowd and stuff like that. But they didn't think that Derek Chauvin was murdering George Floyd. There was no indication of that. He was just restraining him, as he believed he should do, as George Floyd was trying to evade arrest. Ribs Exposed writes, "Just thought I'd say hello. Keep up the good work." Well, thank you, Ribs Exposed from New Zealand. Craig Day says Savannah has her own show. Sav says, "Yeah, I've watched that a couple of times. It's a good show. She's a charming girl. I don't know why her shows don't get more views. I think she's a bit underrated as a YouTuber." Savannah is my friend Elijah's producer over at Blaze, and a good friend of mine. Nice girl. Brandon Loeffner says, "Faith Gadet, will you marry me?" Faith Gadet, Brandon Loeffner obviously watches my show, gave me $10. I say, the man's a catch. I say, go for it. I don't know who Faith Gadet is. I assume it's somebody you know personally. Let me look that up, see if she's famous or something. Nope, just somebody he knows that he's proposing to on my live stream. So Faith Gadet, please marry Brandon Loeffner. Loeffner? Is that how you pronounce your name? I hope so. Seems like a good man. Let's see here. People ask me often how I proposed to Valeria and how we ended up getting married, and it's really dismal. I never proposed to her. We basically were just talking about it one day, and we were like, I guess we should get married. And that was that. And I didn't have a ring or anything. I mean, I have a ring now, but yeah, it's kind of it's not very nice. We should probably have a real ceremony at some point because we didn't even do that. We just went to the court. But we were really, really poor at the time, and she was very, very practical Russian girl. So now that we have a little bit more money, I think she actually wants some more stuff like that. Otaku Magnet, hey, buddy, says, all Minnesota police need to immediately walk, go home, and don't turn back. I mean, that'd be really irresponsible, but I could imagine that happening. Latina Valentina says, from now on, in these cities, 911 callers need to say that if they're black, so only black officers can respond, since officers of other races are so evil. Yeah. I've heard... Oh, hey, here we go. Elijah's on here. Thanks, guys. Sav here talking for Elijah. Oh, Savannah's in the live stream. Hey, Savannah, how you doing? Say hi to Elijah for me. I'm going to meet up shortly. Hey, Savannah, are you going to Vegas with us? You should go to Vegas on our trip. I'm not going to tell everybody when it is. It's sometime in the future. But You should come along. Salty Granny says, hey, Sav, stay safe. Are you guys in... I didn't get a text back, I don't think, from Malaysia. Are you guys in Minnesota? I assume you are. Elijah likes to put himself right in the core of the most dangerous situations. He's a little crazy. I genuinely worry about him. Whenever I get footage from him from like some kind of Antifa protest, I'm like, dude, are you okay? Like, okay, Savannah is written yes, so I assume that means that she's coming to Vegas. Hey, that's awesome. We'll see you there. And then she says, we're not in Minnesota, sadly. I mean, so Elijah started, I think, a daily show or 3 days a week or something like that in studio, so it's a little bit harder for him to get around the country, so I guess he didn't go to Minnesota. Let's see here. Janet Partridge, just watched the left celebrating on Fox News, made me feel sick. Yeah, I mean, okay, I understand if people genuinely think that Derek Chauvin is guilty to celebrate this verdict. I understand that. I certainly would have celebrated if he had been... Well, I wouldn't... That's a weird thing, right? I don't feel compelled to celebrate if justice has been served. I just like I'm more relieved. I'm just like, okay, phew, okay, no injustice, right? But like you know, I remember back when OJ was, this was I must have been like 18 or something like that, when OJ was exonerated. Weirdly, and I remember a bunch of people in my class celebrated, and I thought to myself, okay, I don't agree with these guys, but even if I did, why are you celebrating? If you think justice has been served, that's nothing to celebrate. That's just what should be standard, right? We shouldn't live in a country where we suspect that justice won't be served, and then if it is served, we're like celebrating it. That's ridiculous. I think the reason people celebrate a particular verdict is often because deep down, I think they know they're rooting for the wrong thing, right? I think that they're rooting for injustice, and they know that it's a kind of a high hurdle to cross, and they know that what they want is wrong, and so the odds are against them, right? And so if injustice occurs and you want that injustice to occur, you celebrate. If justice occurs and you want justice, I don't think you celebrate. I think you go, okay, good, that was the right thing to happen. So I think when you see people celebrating a verdict, it's it might be an indication that they know that they're celebrating an injustice, which is what we're seeing here, I think. Nancy Drew writes, X-rays show a different type of chest picture than flu or pneumonia, glass-like, and tests can pick up COVID. Okay, she's talking about COVID. I just picked a random thing. Let's see here. So I'm trying to find... let's see here. I'm not getting any Mr. Reagan. Oh, here's one. A taco magnet. The residents of the city voted to get rid of the police. The government of Minnesota is setting them up as villains. The police need to get out before they're even bigger targets on their backs. You know, that's a very good point. I don't know what's going to happen in Minnesota. Again, that's where my family first came to when we left Germany. My family went to Minnesota. My Scottish side actually went to Michigan. So we were all Midwest. My ancestors were all Midwest before they ended up shifting over to the West Coast. And we've lived all over the West Coast. Some of my grandparents were in Washington, some were in California, and they all kind of sort of met up in Oregon, which is where I'm from. And these are all places that are being destroyed by leftists. Washington State, Oregon, California, and Minnesota and Michigan are all being destroyed by leftists. It's so sad. It's like everywhere my family is, Democrats want to destroy the place. Yeah. And Pennsylvania. We have a lot of ancestors from Pennsylvania and relatives that are still there. And beautiful places. All these places are beautiful places, and they're just being destroyed by Democrats. Yeah, it's very sad. Let's see here. Based upstate New York says, can you do the Law and Order preamble? I assume you mean the show? I've never seen the show Law and Order. I've never seen it. All I know is dun, dun. That's the only part of the show I know. Let's see here. Kathy Lawrence says, "Oh, Mr. Reagan, let's all just sing Bye Bye, Miss American Pie." Oh, man, that's so sad. That's already a sad song. And then, you know, it's even worse. A lot of people like Savannah. That's so weird. A lot of people like a lot of Savannah love in the house today. Let's see here. I didn't know so many people knew who Savannah was. Savannah, your show is totally underrated. I've watched your live streams, and you need more viewers. You're too good. Let's see here. Ty Timmons writes, "We can't lock up the drugs, the heart blockage, or George Floyd for his erratic behavior while resisting arrest. So let's just lock up the cop and call it good. Personal accountability, what's that?" Spot on assessment, Ty. Spot on assessment. Somebody has to be the bad guy. Drugs can't be the bad guy. You know, a heart attack can't be the bad guy. Health condition can't be the bad guy. You have to have somebody's got to be held accountable. I mean, in this case, you know, Derek Chauvin is just a scapegoat. He's a guy to put in prison so that people can feel like justice was served, even though it absolutely was not. Let's see here. Fly Tech Bass writes, "Do you ever wonder why George Floyd had a closed gold coffin?" I've wondered why he's had a gold coffin. Do you remember what happened when George Floyd was buried? He had this massive funeral. I mean, it was like a state funeral. It was the weirdest thing ever for a criminal. For a criminal. I mean, it's just ridiculous. People are so weird. I mean, they glorify the wrong people. I mean, I talk about this a lot on my show. There's an idea that like black people are disproportionately poor, and why is that? Oh, it must be because of racism, right? And a lot of our presumptions about systemic racism in America come from the disproportionate poverty of black Americans, which I of course that exists. I mean, the disproportionate poverty, not the systemic racism thing. And so people are always trying to come up with an answer for this. And one thing that Democrats are very worried about, I think, is especially Republicans, but people generally believing that black people are somehow inferior, and that's why they can't elevate themselves out of poverty. I've never argued that, and I don't think that. The reason that I think black people can't elevate themselves out of poverty, and I've said this in many, many shows over and over again, is that black people in America are conditioned to be racist against white Americans. And apparently Asians now. I don't know what that's about, but and I think maybe the Asian thing has been true for a long time. I'm not aware of it because I'm not black and I don't come from a black neighborhood. But certainly I know of a lot of black racism against white people because I know a lot of black people, and they tell me that everybody they know that's black hates white people. They're racist against white people. And if you've got a society who's racist against another group in society, and the other group that they don't like has a lot more money than they do, well, they're going to limit themselves with how much money they can get, right? Because if you don't interact with the people who have more money than you, it's going to be harder to make more money, right? So you can't draw people out of poverty if they refuse to interact with you, no matter how much money you have, right? This, I think, is the problem. You know, I had a friend when I was a kid who was black, and she got bullied because she would bring her books to school. And people would say, that's a white thing to do. That's a white way to be, to study, and to actually carry your books to school and be diligent about getting good grades. That's like a white thing. And the people around her community were so racist against white people that they thought even studying was a bad thing because it was too white. That's the reason black people can't succeed in higher rates in America. It's because they're racist against white people. That's the problem. And this is exacerbating that problem. Josh Mahay writes, "Chris, I'm in Michigan, going straight to Liberty Hell, buddy." To Liberty Hell? I don't quite know what that means, but I guess he means we're losing. Oh, so going to liberal hell. Liberal hell. I never learned to read. That's my problem. Liberal hell. I know, man. I know. I think it's like starting in Detroit and spreading outwards. This like liberal insanity in Michigan. It's just so frustrating because these are really beautiful, amazing states that were built up over generations of Americans to be beautiful, amazing places. Just being destroyed. Let's see here. Slightly offensive. I think that Savannah writes, LMAO, same. I don't quite know what she's talking about. I assume she's responding to something I said, but I don't know. God, Savannah, you're getting so much love. Why do people love Savannah? I'm jealous. I'm jealous of you. Let's see here. Kimberly Ashcroft writes, those harmed by riots should sue family and BLM. Oh yeah, they should definitely sue BLM. I don't know who else, but certainly BLM should be sued by everybody who's lost a business, everybody who's lost family members to BLM riots, and maybe Maxine Waters as well. CP23 writes, we now have entered the new age of mob rule. Due process and the justice system died today. Yeah, I mean, it was on its last legs. I think you're right. It's probably dead. Let's see here. Nancy Drew writes, Maxine Waters needs to be held accountable for her acts of insurrection and inciting the riots in Minneapolis and inciting people to go after Trump supporters. You know, that's so true. And also, it's weird. It's like, you know, we've talked about this a lot on the show. In just about every facet of politics, you can find examples where leftists will claim that conservatives are doing something wrong or criminal or unethical, and they're lying. You know, they're lying. We're not doing those things. We're not acting unethically. We're not acting immorally. We're not acting criminally. We're not doing the things that they're saying that they're doing. But they are doing those things. They will almost always accuse us. In fact, I think probably always. They will always accuse us of doing the things that they're doing. Right? Joe Biden said, if you don't fire this prosecutor who's going after the business that my son is being paid off by, I'm not going to allow aid to go to Ukraine. And then what did they do? They said Trump threatened to reduce aid or stop aid going to Ukraine unless the Ukrainian president said or did what he told him to do. Well, that never happened. We know that's what happened with Biden. We know that's not what happened with Trump. And yet the Democrats were accusing Trump of doing it as a sort of distraction so that we wouldn't focus on the fact that Biden acted criminally, right? He was taking bribes. He was, you know, there's countless acts of criminality of Joe Biden when he was vice president. We dismissed all of those things in the media because they were focused on Trump and his Ukraine phone call, which was perfectly reasonable. The Supreme Patriarch Balthazar Gelt. Yeah, I don't know where you're from, man, but that's fantastic. I think he's from Switzerland. I think CHF is a Swiss francs, which is cool because I like Switzerland. I'm going to probably visit there this year sometime. When their state government talks about abolish the police, officers should just quit and join militias instead. Hashtag Kyle Rittenhouse did nothing wrong. I mean, you know, you kind of make it. Whoa, almost knocked myself out there. I don't know how that would work, but it's kind of a good point. Like, I've often thought, like, when I see these riots and the police are just like, they're not doing anything. They're not going and they're not dealing with the riots. I often think, like, why don't we just get militias to go in and just take out these rioters? Just take them out, you know, not murder them, but like citizens arrest. Just arrest all of them. Have all these militias come in with real guns and just arrest all these people because the police aren't doing it. And I don't blame the police necessarily. I blame the people who are ordering the police to stand down. You know, in Portland, this happens all the time. Send the militias in. You know, let them take care of it. There's a lot of them. They got some big guns as well. Sammy Sparks says, off topic, what happened to the cartoon about the squad? You know, I redesigned that and I tried to work it out in a couple of different ways. And I need to hire somebody to implement the new design. I got like 4 different projects I'm working on, but I'm glad you reminded me of that because I kind of dropped it a couple of weeks ago because I was focusing on something else. But actually, when I'm done with this, I'm going to call the people that were supposed to work on that. And I'm going to get them back on it. Kathy Lawrence, Mr. Reagan. I really love that idea for that cartoon. I can't wait to do that. It's so tough to make a cartoon, you guys. It's so much harder than I thought it was going to be. It's just so time intensive and so expensive to get people to work on it. But I have a new plan that's going to be cheaper, and I think it'll work. Let's see here. Mr. Reagan, what would they get if they sued BLM? Their leader spent all the donations on herself. There's nothing left to get. That's not actually true. So I don't know where she got her money, but BLM is saying that they don't pay her very much money. So if she did, in fact, spend the money on herself, I think there needs to be an investigation there by the federal government and she should be in prison, right? Because you can't just take charitable donations and just, buy stuff with them yourself and just own things yourself with them. Like, it doesn't matter. if you run the organization. You know, that was a weird thing about the Clinton Foundation. I felt like they're taking all this money for the Clinton Foundation, and it's like, you know, and then as soon as they stepped out of power, Hillary Clinton was not elected, obviously, in 2016. The Clinton Foundation just kind of disappeared. It's like, well, if you have this foundation that's supposed to help people with problems, and people aren't donating to that foundation because you're no longer in power, they have no influence over you. I think you've indicated that that foundation actually isn't there to help people. I mean, I don't want to get too sidetracked with that, but I think we all know that the whole concept of the Clinton Foundation was absolute BS. But I did often wonder whether or not the Clintons were using that money for their own personal stuff. I don't know. I think it's possible. Let's see here. No more. Oh, here we go. INSK writes, Mr. Reagan hasn't reached black-pilled yet. America's heading for South Africa apartheid horror. Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, we're already kind of there to some degree. I think we're already in South Africa apartheid horror. I mean, certainly it's a little bit different because the government isn't actively saying, go out and shoot white farmers, right? We have video of politicians actually telling black people in South Africa to go out and kill white farmers. But you have people like Maxine Waters essentially saying something similar, right? She's saying, you know, you need to be more confrontational. Well, what the hell does that mean? They're burning down stores. They're looting the stores. What does being more confrontational mean? Murdering people? That's the only interpretation I get from it. I mean, that's like, be more violent, put people in the hospital. Like, what the hell do you mean, Maxine Waters? So we are kind of in that situation, and you do get these mobs of black people going in and destroying stores, burning down buildings, killing people, murdering people, because they perceive white people in America to be racist, which is precisely what's happened in South Africa, right? They think, well, black people own this land. This is our land. We're going to take out white people. One thing that's interesting about South Africa is that there weren't very many black people, sub-Saharan Africans, that lived in South Africa when the Dutch originally came there, and the English eventually came there too. There actually wasn't a really big black sub-Saharan African native population, and in fact, it is disputed, or what was disputed for a long time, whether or not there was ever any kind of original tribes that lived in the South African area when the Dutch got there. I don't know what the conclusion is of that presumption, but or of that dispute. I think that there is evidence that there was a tribe there of some kind, but it wasn't a very large tribe. It wasn't like a significant population. So when the Dutch got there and they settled the land and they started farming the land and they were making money and they developed cities and stuff like that, then you had a lot of people trying to immigrate in and trying to come there. And I think you probably had some kind of slavery system down there. I don't know, because I haven't studied South Africa enough, but I think there were probably slaves in South Africa. And so now you have a much more significant black population in South Africa of sub-Saharan Africans. And there's this idea that, well, we're black and we're from Africa, so we have a right to this land, despite the fact that I think the descendants of most of the black Africans that live in sub-Saharan Africa, their ancestors weren't actually from that region. They were from other parts of Africa. And they came there sort of just as the Dutch did, and after them the English. So this idea that, white people are racist and this is actually our land, our native land, I don't think that that's appropriate. I certainly don't think you should be murdering people for that reason. And you do have people being murdered in America because there is this presumption that white people are racist and they need to be killed. It's despicable, and we've created this mess. We're in a mess because the left continues to perpetuate this lie that America is deeply racist against black people. I don't think there's anywhere in the world where you have more opportunity as a black human, than you do in America. I think America provides black people with the most opportunity of any place on the planet. And I don't think that black people are treated any differently than white people in America, pretty much anywhere, in any institution, anywhere. Except that I think oftentimes black people are given more opportunities than other groups, than white people, than Asians, than Hispanics, than Middle Eastern folks, Indians. I think black people are often given more opportunities than anyone. If you turn on the TV and you watch TV commercials, I've said this many times on the show, if you didn't know anything else about America and you just knew America from TV commercials, you would think white people were an ethnic minority here. You would think that black people were the dominant ethnicity in America if you just watched TV ads and knew nothing else about the country. Because they've completely stocked every ad full of black people. And the reason they do that is because advertisers know, and I have a degree in advertising, so I know about how advertisers think to some degree. I mean, I haven't worked in advertising really, but look, it just makes sense logically. If you have a population of people in America that are not racist, you can go ahead and put other people of other races in TV ads and they won't mind. But if you have a group of people in America that are racist and you put another race in ads, they will mind. They won't like it. And so if you're, if you're Coca-Cola and you want to produce ads that get white people and black people to drink your product, you're not going to put white people in the ads. You're going to put black people, because if you only put white people in your ads, the black people won't drink your Coca-Cola. But if you put black people in your ad, then both groups will, because the white people are not racist and the black people are racist. Not every black person, obviously, but that's a huge problem in America right now. I think we have some more super chats here. Daryl B writes, as a black conservative, I have to say, I think we're at the point of no return. Thomas Sowell warned the point of no return that Thomas Sowell warned us of, and I genuinely fear for race relations in America. I think this is it. Daryl, I 100% agree with you. And actually, Thomas Sowell is one of my political heroes. I love Thomas Sowell. I think he's one of the smartest. That's the weird thing. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, back in the 80s, you could see a black guy on TV and not necessarily think about him as being black. You could see Thomas Sowell talking on TV, and certainly he'd probably be talking about racial stuff, so you might think about it that way. But like, I grew up not caring that much about that kind of stuff, or not even thinking about it much of the time. Certainly it was a thing. I mean, you thought about it a bit. But in the 80s and 90s, we were sort of like getting to a point where you didn't see race all that much. And then it completely, everything like completely like blew up. Everything got crazy in like the 2000s, around 2010 especially. But after the 90s, there was this idea that, oh, well, black people shouldn't be like white people. Black people should retain, and this, I remember this conversation, the first time I kind of heard about this idea was with regard to the concept of ebonics, right? There's this concept of ebonics, which is the way that black people culturally would take the English language and more or less mangle it. They would say words like ambulance instead of ambulance. They would say axe instead of ask. Things like this. I mean, there's obviously much more egregious examples of way people, the way some people pronounce words. Trying to think of a specific one that I've always found a little bit funny, because there's no real reason to mispronounce it. But there's a bunch of different words that black people mispronounce, or they say kind of weird. And there's this idea that, oh, black people should not speak English the way white people speak English. They should speak their own version of English, and that should be accepted as a standard way of speaking English. And I just thought, no, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't. How can you possibly try to get a job at, say, like a law firm if you don't speak the same language as the other people at the law firm? You're not going to be able to do it. I mean, you need to have a high standard, and that standard needs to be a set standard. It can't just be like whatever these people want. I mean, it has to be, there has to be a standard that people abide by. Certainly language does change over time, and you can make sort of modifications to the language. But you can't say, oh, this particular group, they can speak their language and we speak our language and we work together. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. So that to me seemed like really weird. And then to me, it just spiraled out of control from there. Like, black people should just stay culturally distinct from other Americans, and we should be okay with that. And we, instead of having, because they were saying we shouldn't have a melting pot anymore. We should have a mixed salad, or whatever it was, a salad bowl instead of a melting pot. And I thought, this is just, at first I didn't think it was necessarily bad because I was a kid. I didn't really know anything. But over time, I was like, nah, this isn't going to work. Like, you need to have something that binds you culturally together in order for you to be one people, right? We are Americans, black, white, Asian, whatever. We're Americans. And the left's been trying to destroy that since the 90s, I think, and it's been working. Let's see. Sleeves End writes, could a deal have been made, a man for a city? He could be promised a retrial and some of that George Floyd money. Maybe the news knows, even the five. Look, I would have dismissed what you're saying as completely like crazy conspiracy theory nonsense a couple of years ago. But since I've been doing this show and I've been researching all the shady stuff that goes on in DC and especially like what Nancy Pelosi's been doing and George Poros, whose name will remain distorted for the show, with all the district attorneys that he's been putting in office and all that kind of shady stuff and all the shady stuff that he did before that and all the shady dealings with Hillary Clinton. If you don't know, I posted this. I posted a video about this. Everybody should watch this. There's no commentary from me. It's the CEO of Overstock.com talking about his negotiations with the FBI to go ahead and get dirt on Hillary Clinton. And then the FBI basically told him, because after that, he thought he got all this dirt on Hillary Clinton in a sting operation. And then he thought that she would go to prison. And then when he asked the FBI about it, they said, no. She's going to be president, and we're going to be able to control her. And you're never allowed to talk about this with anyone. And he did a whole interview on it. This is the CEO of Overstock. I mean, the guy's a millionaire. He doesn't need to lie about political stuff. And he was already kind of famous, and he was already kind of this kind of interesting character. So, I mean, unless he's completely insane, which is not out of the realm of possibilities, but unless that guy's completely insane, that interview testimony to me is astonishing. So yeah, I don't put anything past the Democrats. I think that what you're talking about here is possible. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's certainly possible. A man for a city. Deal has been made. Yeah, I mean, if he wins in the appeals process, I would say that that's much more of a likely scenario. Especially if they say like, okay, we're gonna maybe set you up as being guilty, but we're only gonna put you in prison for a couple of years, but then you're gonna get $1 million or something like that. Yeah, that's a deal that could happen. Official Mel Peachy writes, there was no justice in that courtroom. It all got thrown out. It will all get thrown out on appeal, and in a new trial, he will be found innocent. I hope that's true. It's one of these things where it's like, I actually couldn't have imagined that he would be found guilty on all counts. I could have imagined maybe on like one count or something like that. I was desperately hoping he would be not guilty on all counts because I was like, that's justice, right? That's justice. When he was found guilty on the first count, I was like, okay, well, that's probably the only one. Then the second count, I was like, ah, crap. Then all three, I thought, or was it 3 or was it more than that? But anyway, once he was found guilty on all counts, I thought, this is messed up. Like this is wrong. This is complete and totally, a lack of justice here. And because the injustice is so egregious, I could definitely see, there's got to be an appeal and he's got to win. But what was really disappointing to me, and I was mentioning it before at the beginning of the show, was that afterwards I had Fox News on watching the verdict, and the Five comes on and they start talking about how this was, the justice system working. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? This is the justice system failing. I was so disappointed in Fox News. But what Greg Gutfeld said was really outrageous. That really disturbed me to my core. And I'll mention that in 1 second. But first, I'm going to read from Dan Stinka. Dan Stinka. It looks like Stinka. You should modify your last name so that people don't say that. Let's see here. Hey, brother, long time. What's your take on the result of the Derek Chauvin case? Moldovans for America. Okay, that's the thing. So he's Moldovan. So probably Stinga or Steinka in Moldovan doesn't sound quite as bad as it does here in America. Actually, I have a really good friend who's from Moldova. Beautiful girl. Anyway, never dated her, but she's a good friend. But we came close. We might have dated. It might have happened. Anyway, but it never happened. Moldovan. Yeah. So I was talking about the Derek Chauvin case. Okay, obviously, this is a huge miscarriage of justice. This is terrible what happened. But I do want to talk about exactly how Fox News reacted to this, which I think was just as egregious, just as outrageous, just as horrible. Well, not just as horrible, but just the icing on the cake of horribleness, I guess. I don't know. Added insult to injury. They all agreed that this was some kind of justice being served, and I think it's the exact opposite of that. I think it's terrible injustice. But here's the worst bit. The worst bit was what Greg Gutfeld said. What he said was that he would have liked... So he was saying that he believed that Derek Chauvin was guilty and the verdict should have been guilty on all counts. That's what he said. But he said, even if I didn't believe he was guilty, I would have wanted to see a guilty verdict just so we could avoid the rioting. And to me, this was so disappointing. I lost so much respect for Greg Gutfeld in that one moment. Because how can you want somebody to go to prison for who knows how long? Because you selfishly don't want some people to be robbing a Nike store or to burn down a Wendy's? Screw you, Gutfeld. What the hell is wrong with you? Like, I love Greg Gutfeld. I've watched his show, for years now. I loved him on The Five. I loved him on Red Eye. I've watched him for years. He's hilarious. He's right on almost everything. How the hell can you give in to terrorists? How the hell can you give in to terrorists? When you give in to terrorism, you know what that does? It encourages more terrorism. That's like Joe Biden with the border. Oh, we'll just let in all these illegal aliens, and then we'll be seen as nice by everybody. It's like, dude, you let in illegal aliens. You know what happens? More illegal aliens start to come across the border. More illegal aliens start knocking on the door, right? It's like when you feed a stray cat. Does the cat then leave satisfied? No. He comes back. Oh, more and more and more. More cats start to come because they know, oh, you got free food here. Some people might think that's an unsympathetic. I have sympathy for illegal aliens, I should say. If I was in a bad situation like that and I could get out of it by crossing a border, I would certainly do so. But it's just logic, right? It's just reason, logic, rational thinking. If you let in illegal, and he talks about this on his show. He talks about how Biden has encouraged this illegal immigration. And now he's saying, oh, but we got to give in to domestic terrorists by putting this guy into prison when he's not guilty? So that what? So they'll stop looting? So they'll stop burning stores down? No. You let justice be served, and then when they try to riot, you go and arrest them. That's what you do, okay? You do not give in to terrorists, ever. All right, let's read here. Dan Stinka again. Steinka? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Yeah, you mentioned the Moldovan friend before. I'm the guy with the bathroom remodeling company in Asheville. Oh, yeah, that's awesome, man. Tell me the name of your company. If you're in Asheville, I guess he means Asheville, Oregon. Oh, no. It's not Asheville, Oregon. It's like Asheville, North Carolina or something like that. Yeah, give me the name of your company again, and I'll go ahead and promote it again. Yeah, that guy's great. I love that guy. Yeah, he's got a bathroom remodeling company, and I mentioned him on the show once, and he got a job from it, I think. A gig, I guess you could say. But yeah, good patriot. We should always support our patriot companies if we know of a patriot company. I feel like even if they're not, well, it's tough sometimes, right? Because a lot of companies they may not be a right-wing company, but they may employ a lot of people who are Republicans. So, all right, Dan Sanko writes, Creative Works Construction. He's but you didn't say the state. I don't know what the state is. I think you said Asheville, right? Well, let me look up where that is. Hold on. Nick Tsoon writes, the United States does not negotiate with terrorists until now. That's exactly right. Okay, Dan Steinka says he's from Asheville. I think it's South Carolina, I think. Let me look that up. Asheville, North Carolina. Okay. So if you're in Asheville, North Carolina, or anywhere near Asheville, North Carolina, or anywhere in North Carolina, look up Creative Works Construction if you want your bathroom remodeled. The guy's a conservative. Yeah, there you go. Asheville, North Carolina. I looked it up. And, get yourself a good construction guy. I assume he does more than just bathrooms, but I guess that's his specialty. So if you want that kind of work done, go ahead and give him a call. He'll give you a quote. I think that's a good deal. Tom Christopoulos, who I think I know, I'm not sure, writes, keep up the good fight. Podcasts like Brandon Tatum, Kevin's Corner, and of course your voice is paramount in the fight against the woke world. Yeah, I mean, we're sitting here and we are really lamenting, I think, to some degree, the death of the judicial system in America, justice, democracy, right? A lot of people are not convinced that the election was legitimate, right? They think that the votes were doctored. This is what a lot of people in America think right now. I, of course, can't possibly think that because I'm on YouTube and the YouTube gods don't let me think that. Which is, of course, absurd because the most important right that of free speech that we have in America is the right to say we don't think that this election was legitimate. That is it's critical to a healthy democracy to be able to assert that belief, to be able to look into that, investigate those sorts of things. We're not allowed to talk about it. How crazy is that? We're not even allowed to talk about the possibility that that might be true now, or we get canceled from all of our social media accounts. It's insane. We do not live in a free democracy anymore, and we need to fix this. I feel like I need to run for office or something like that. I feel like I need to do more than just have a YouTube channel. But right now, that's the way I'm making money, so that's what I got to do. But yeah, I got to figure something. I got to run for office somewhere or something. I got to do something. I don't know. I got to do more than I'm doing right now. All right, I need to end this because I need to do another live stream for my other channel, Toxic Masculinity. If you haven't subscribed to Toxic Masculinity, please do so. Don't hit the notification bell for Toxic Masculinity because I post so much crap on that channel that you will be notified like 10 times a day, which will annoy the hell out of you. But do subscribe to the channel, Toxic Masculinity. I do a live stream every night at 6, every weeknight at 6. The wife is usually with me. Today she will not be. But yeah, I need to take a break and prepare for my other live stream. So I'm going to go. Dan Steinko again writes, I'll finish this later. Walking into church, God bless you and your viewers. Well, thank you, Dan Steinko. And again, if you are in North Carolina and near Asheville, go ahead and look up Dan's company, Creative Works Construction, and he'll remodel your bathroom for you. Oh, wow. This guy just wrote something really profound. Mel O'Brien just wrote, the KKK needs members. This will help. You are so right, man. And that is not what we need more of in this country. We need more anti-racists. We need fewer racists. All right. Love you guys. The best subscribers in all of YouTube. It's a dark day today, and I'm honestly sick of reporting these terrible, terrible days. We need a slew of good days. So hopefully justice will be served eventually. There will be an appeal, and we'll see justice served. And hopefully we'll get conservatives back in political office here coming up. All right, guys. I will see you guys next time. I got a bunch of cool videos that I'm producing. It takes a lot of time, especially since I'm doing this new show, Toxic Masculinity. It's taking a lot of time out of my schedule, but we're going to get some new shows coming up. All right, sorry about this. Okay, Angela B. has written me, how long until violent BLM mobs threaten violence if their heroes like Cosby, rap stars, etc. are convicted for rape, murder, etc. in the future? Yeah. It's so crappy about Cosby because he was such a good influence before that. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, we need more good role models for all Americans, not just black Americans. All Americans need positive role models. Not George Floyd. We don't need to have massive parades and, parade/funerals for people like George Floyd. Criminals should not be the heroes of our youth in America. Heroes should be the heroes of our youth. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you on the next... oh, my, there's another one. Torque1 writes, Yugoslavia all over again. Substitute race for religion, same thing. You're 100% right, man. I mean, this is just... There's no room for prejudice in our democracy. It's totally inappropriate, right? This kind of a prejudice. But All right. Well, I'm going to make a bunch of new videos for you guys talking a lot about... I'm in the new videos that I'm making, I'm talking a lot about the corruption in D.C. and stuff like that. And I just made one about Ross Perot. If you haven't seen that, please watch it. I indict to some degree the Bush administration and maybe even George Bush himself personally. Go ahead and have a watch about that. If you don't know about what happened with Ross Perot, basically his daughter was threatened, and that got him out of the race back in whatever it was in the 1990s. And of course, George Bush did end up losing to Bill Clinton, which was the beginning of the end, I think, to some degree for our democracy. But yeah, Ross Perot was threatened. And is George Bush Sr. part of the deep state? I mean, he was the head of the CIA, so that might have been the beginning of the end right there. And Ross Perot was the original Donald Trump, and he was basically screwed over. He may have won that year had he not been threatened in that way. But yeah, go ahead and watch that video. I think that's a really important video, and it got very few views. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and watch it. And I will see you on the next one. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.